Okay, I think it's time to start. We are very pleased. Okay, dear colleagues and students, my name is Sung Sang-hwan. I'm the director of the Center for Educational Research at Seoul National University. And today we have first overseas scholar invited to talk. We prepared a very interesting event, and we are very pleased to host this overseas scholar lecture. And today we are delighted to have Professor Ulrich Johannes Schneider from Leipzig University in Germany. And he is a professor of cultural studies, Kulturwissenschaften. Is that right? So professor of cultural studies at the University of Leipzig. And he has been the director of the university library from, as I remember it correctly, from 2006 to 22. That's right. For so long, you were the director of the university library, and you must be well aware of the European library digitization process and system, I believe. Okay, so today we are very happy to have you, Dr. Schneider, and the topic of today's lecture is digitization in libraries, effects and challenges. And after this lecture, we will have a discussion by Miss Kwon Hyo-Kyoung from our Seoul National University Library, and she will talk about our library digitization system. Okay, so Dr. Schneider, you have about 45 minutes or 15 minutes. Okay, so floor is yours. We welcome you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you who are attending. I'm very happy and pleased to talk to you and to get your feedback, your questions, and your commentaries. So first, I need to get my presentation. I will start here. In my talk today, I want to venture into some of the problems libraries face today by what we call digitization. This is actually a process affecting the libraries in different ways. Please allow me first to present myself so you can more easily see where I come from. I have an experience of 23 years in libraries, first in Wolfenbüttel in the north of Germany, where the Herzog August Library is located. Back in the 17th century, it was the biggest library of the world with a very advanced catalogue. Now it is a research hub with fellowships, summer universities, and many other activities, which make it a center for advanced study in modern European history. It is also linked to Göttingen University nearby. For 7 years, I was a deputy director there, responsible for research. In 2006, I moved on to Leipzig University Library and became its director for more than 16 years. Leipzig University Library was founded in 1543 and has rich holdings from many world cultures, including Egypt, China, and Japan. Its collections comprise not only books and manuscripts, but also 87,000 coins, as well as drawings, films, and even video games. In Wolfenbüttel and in Leipzig, I have worked in libraries which are also major cultural archives. In both places, I have experienced digitization as a reality and as a challenge. I'm not, however, a trained librarian, but started out as a philosopher and a historian of culture. I worked at several universities and research institutions, among them the Collège de France in Paris, the Technical University in Berlin, the Getty Research Center, and the Institute for Cultural Studies at the University of Leipzig. My research and my publications cover the history of philosophy, the history of knowledge as expressed in encyclopedias, and other domains of European cultures. I have studied and worked with French philosopher Michel Foucault back in 1981, and from him I learned to describe in great detail the habits and practices we all follow in what we are doing. My latest interest is now focused on the global history of libraries. I want to explore and analyze when and why libraries added to their archival duties of preserving literature another duty to serve their readers. In my research project, my work experience in libraries comes together with my interests as a cultural historian. My talk has 4 sections, and I start with describing very briefly the main function of modern libraries. Although my research concerns mostly the 19th and the early 20th centuries, today I will stick to our present time. First point, libraries as a service. I like to approach library history from the user experience, and I show you here 2 photographs of reading rooms at Leipzig University Library, one from 1930 and one from 2015. You can see almost no difference, even as we all know that digitization changed many things for students in 2015. At closer inspection, the photos reveal that most people in the reading room are writing, not reading, or not only reading. And this has been true for a long time. Institutions of higher learning have to provide texts and other material for their students, and the reading room is very much the place where new ideas get formed, are noted on paper or typed on a laptop. Reading and writing go together, as university librarians all over the world know well. Here are 2 photographs of people reading in public libraries. I apologize for the poor quality. One photograph is from Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania in the US, taken in 1905, and another more recent one from the Metropolitan Library in Seoul, South Korea. What you do in a public library is not so much writing, but getting inspired and informed by literature. Ever since public libraries were built and prospered, beginning in the 19th century in the US and in Great Britain, they found a reading public. In other words, they were a success story. There is so much to learn about so many subjects, and it is fun to do some of that reading in public libraries. They make books and other material available for everyone for free, and this is essential. A public library is mostly called so because it is funded by public authorities, by states and cities, but they are also called public because they offer what they have for everyone. These 2 photographs illustrate a big historical shift in library services. When the French architect Henri Labrouste built the Bibliothèque Sainte-Geneviève in Paris, France, to the left, he was the first to build a really big reading room, seating 400. This was in 1851, and all other library buildings from then on included a reading room. Among the first, following Labrouste, were the British Museum in London, 1857, and the Boston Public Library in 1858. The storyline from then on is simple. All modern libraries have reading rooms, indicating that they are actively serving their public. The other photograph shows part of the EPFL Learning Center in Lausanne, Switzerland, which opened in 2010. There is much space given to people working. The stacks are remote. Getting books to your desk is obviously less important in the digital age. All over the world, many other library reading rooms look like this, with comfortable furniture, with different zones for different modes of working, alone or in groups, in a silent corner, or with many people talking. When I was in South Korea in February, I saw a lot of places similar to this one. Now, this photograph is arranged in order to show the effects of digitization for readers who want to use the library. Today, they have at their disposal many tools, also digital ones, and many media, also digital ones. Working in a library means dealing with physical and digital material, applying traditional tools and the most recent apps. My thesis is this. With digitization, modern libraries experience many changes, but keep their main functions, which are providing catalogs, media, and places for work. My next topic is catalogs, and here I switch to what librarians do best. For centuries, catalogs have been the key instruments for finding relevant literature and for establishing valid bibliographies. Ever since we have printed books and journals, library catalogs served the function of indexing selected titles, making available what is best for reading. I think it is important to state at the outset that digitization in libraries impacts different functions. Not only the catalogs, which you see symbolized top left, but also the holdings, top right, and not least the administration. I will not talk about the effects of digitization on the administrative side of library work, are symbolized below. Acquiring and accounting are now exclusively done by using computers and specialized applications. I will talk about the effects of digitization on the library holdings in a short while, but first want to stick to catalogs. Catalogs in the old and universal sense account for the holdings, which are in the first instance local holdings. So we have local catalogs, here top left from Leipzig University, but at a higher level we also have regional and national catalogs, here top right, the German federated catalog produced in Karlsruhe, and of course we can also use the world catalog here below. I just see that in the local catalog top left, I have entries because I tried to find something about Korea which indicate ebooks. So they're not local in that strict sense, but you get the idea. Catalogs function on different levels. The network of catalogs was not at first an effect of digitization. Already the 20th century saw the development of regional and central catalogs covering the holdings of more than one library. Together with national bibliographies, these federated or syndicated catalogs were important tools for all sorts of students. But digitization made the difference. Once catalogs were turned into databases, started in the 1970s, they could be much more easily merged than card catalogs, and once the internet was around, library catalogs became accessible anywhere. As library users, this defines the world we live in. No more uncharted books in the world, except for a few places where initial cataloging is still ongoing. Catalogs do not only register physical objects, but digital ones as well. When books and written texts became digital, the librarians doubled their holdings piece by piece through extensive photography. With digital images of material held in libraries, this material became accessible via the internet, and new digital libraries were born. Here you see 4 of them. One screenshots of the German digital library, top left, its European counterpart, top right, the Europeana, the Digital Public Library of America in the US, and the Internet Archive in San Francisco. Where these libraries exist, there was no library before. So it was not a library turned digital, but it's a completely new, only digital library. They are artificial creations with huge servers. They easily mix text with images, video, and animated content. The 4 search engines I list here are those created with public funds and non-for-profit. There are others like Google or the HathiTrust, ResearchGate, etc., which act as libraries for profit or for members only. Digital cataloging was especially useful for certain special holdings. And here now comes my experience in libraries which were also cultural archives. For example, books from the 17th century. You have one to the right with its original title, which is a very long title. And you have, for that very long title, a traditionally very short catalog entry, top left in white. But then now with the digitization and the combination of catalog and images, we have a new catalog for, especially for 17th century books. And there's a screenshot to the top, to the down left. And there you can see that the full title is taken in the catalog entry. So here you can see one of the ways traditional library techniques like cataloging profit from digitization. The limits imposed by the card catalogs with a little space for comprehensive information are lifted, because that's the original restriction for cataloging. It was the card catalog, and the card was very small. The special catalog in question here was actually begun before digitization was used. However, it is a good example for progress made in cataloging by enhancing the database. I take it that special digital catalogs are very helpful research instruments. Today, digital catalogs produce multimedia results. If you search for Confucius in the Internet Archive, you get 406 hits among different media types. The search limited in older catalogs to local holdings can now go way beyond and group books next to images and audio files. You see that here. Catalogs which become search engines are not limited to pre-established databases or to the stacks of one given library, but function much like an internet browser with pre-selected entries. Every facet of your search can be selected or excluded, searching becoming a multimedia experience. Today, catalogs can do much more than register inventories. They create work environments. See at your left an early modern European book with printed commentary around the printed main text. Additionally, there is a handwritten commentary written in the margins. So you have, if you look at the page, you have 3 levels of text, every text indicating the other one. On the right, you see 2 different manuscripts with identical texts, not linked together by a scholar, as in the case to the left in the old book, but by the force of catalogs which were established to allow just this. The framework IIIF, the International Image Interoperability Framework, and the viewer Mirador use metadata to group different manuscripts according to catalogs with extensive descriptions and normed vocabularies. Work with manuscript will change for good in this way. In Germany, there is a project underway to create a Handschriftenportal, that is a manuscript portal, which provides a catalog and also a workplace at the same time. I am proud to have been at the origin of this long-term project. It's not yet finished, but the beta version is out. As we have seen, catalogs becoming digital changed the work in libraries as well as the work with library resources. This change intensified with the widespread process of digitizing older texts and digital material from publishers and other agents in the cultural field. This merits a closer look, especially because many people think that digital repositories make libraries obsolete in the long run. Here you see a locally established digital repository by one library, the Herzog August Library in Wolfenbüttel. This is just one example for what is possible with digitization when it affects the holding itself. You can create new partial libraries or repositories which are in themselves completely digital. Every book, normally in the old times, had its place on the library shelves, and it had only one place. But every librarian knows that there are many other places where the same book could be put with equal right. Books have many meanings, and digitization makes them all relevant for their grouping. So in digitization, you are free to regroup the books you have in your local library. You can much easier than with physical books create a collection of books by the same author, or books in his or her library, or books which influenced him or her, etc. So here it's a collection of books which have been read or could have been read by the philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. This constitutes a library of its own, simply arranged digitally as a special collection. However, there are important consequences when holdings are transformed into repositories, as I can illustrate with two examples from the library I last worked for. I want to point you at the first example of what I call repairing fragmentation digitally. In telling you about the Ebers papyrus, a medical manuscript from ancient Egypt. Georg Ebers discovered and bought the papyrus in 1873. He had to cut the scroll in 29 pieces and put them under glass for preservation. His care for the manuscript resulted in its fragmentation. Now, in the digital presentation, some of the 110 columns come from the original and some from the 19th century printed facsimile. The facsimile is of special value because some of the original columns were lost in Second World War. Other than that, we have here an example of modern digital edition with images of the original and with translations in English and in German. So that's the basic thing. We have a representation via image of the old script scroll, and then we have linked sentence by sentence. I cannot show you this here, but you can easily test it yourself. Each sentence of the original is linked to an English and a German translation. But the point I made earlier is about the different colors you can see here. And so digitally, we reproduced a full scroll, including images from the original and images on the facsimile when there were columns which only survived in the facsimile form. It was a printed facsimile, because in the Second World War, there was some confusion and some columns got lost. In the internet, that's my point, the Ebers papyrus becomes one unified cultural object again. There is an instructive second example I can point to when talking about repairing fragmentation digitally, namely the Codex Sinaiticus. Its website brings together all the extant leaves of the 4th century Bible manuscript kept in 4 locations, London, Leipzig, St. Petersburg, and Egypt. This fragmentation was the result of the discovery of the manuscript itself, There were several stages of discovery in 1843, 1859, 1933, and in 1975. The original parts of the manuscripts are still kept in 4 different locations, and this, for political reasons, will never change. So it is the internet which brings all the leaves together, as if the Codex Sinaiticus belonged to a new world outside of the traditional political order, devoid of fragmentation. Representing library holdings in digital formats sometimes makes for new material in the sense that objects can be studied in detail. This is true for drawings and prints. This is also true for coins. Digitized coins can be read and valued as historical objects like never before. You see here the German database for coins and medals, combining metadata with high-resolution digital images. For my research on books represented in art, this and other image databases were eye-openers. What I want to say is that the Leipzig University Library had 87,000 coins, and they were all tucked away. You couldn't really work with them. Now with digitization and that special catalog or the special collection of coins only, you can look at the coins, you can enlarge the images. And for example, I was looking for depictions of books on coins. And among the 87,000, there were some. But I could never have done this without the digitized content here. So this is really becoming a new sort of evidence for historical work through digitization. There are many things kept in the library which are difficult to read, not only coins, but also newspapers. The sheer quantity and the poor print quality make them very difficult to read. Now, in the digital format, combined with optical character recognition, OCR, they can be searched. Looking for all kinds of historical information, newspapers are an excellent source, becoming now more and more available. The Austrian National Library has done an excellent job in digitizing many of its German language newspapers already. Germany itself is very much behind when it comes to turning its newspaper holdings into searchable content. This really is a pity. In Germany, many newspapers were printed, but it's very difficult to search them, whereas in Austria, a smaller country, all the newspapers are already digitally available, or most of them. When it comes to digitization of library materials, I'm talking here about open access material, mostly funded by public money or private sponsorship, as in the case of the Internet Archive. This international digital repository holds, as of today, 38 million texts and 15 million photos and films, among many other things. The Internet Archive archives also the Internet itself in its Wayback Machine. For my research on the history of modern libraries, the Internet Archive is by far the most important library. I use it all the time and especially value how quick and reliable it is. My talk will come to an end here. I have touched upon some features of digitally available library catalogs and holdings, and it has become clear, I hope, that the transformation which digitization has brought to libraries is enormous and impressive in terms of quantity and quality. Yet I still maintain that libraries keep their vital modern function of being a place for humans, and that's my last point. The modern libraries, academic ones and public ones, are cultural institutions that support educational networks and individual research, from simple queries to complicated questions. However, digitization in libraries affects the mode of performance, not its social importance. Let me show you again here 2 images from the start of my talk. This is again Leipzig University Library, the reading rooms 1930 and 2015. Let us remind ourselves that the libraries are communal places for individual reading, learning, and researching. Actually, I have to add that also in a group you can learn that. People come here to repair their ignorance and to say something new in the face of so many things already being said. Reading rooms and reading areas are places of work. After a while, people leave the library differently than they came in. Of course, there is more to be said about the inspiring effects of working in libraries, which are still being built in many places around the world. I would like to discuss the future function of libraries with you. And I say this because I have seen many interesting things in South Korea, and I have seen a strengthening of libraries as places for work in many senses of the word. And I like that very much, and I think this is the future of libraries. Libraries have one traditional means to communicate with the public, and that is exhibitions. This is one activity which profits most from the locality of the library and from the aura of objects presented at the very place they are kept. To show library holdings to people living in the present, as you see here in an installation of Leipzig University Library in 2017, attracts people into the library who are not its users. More can be done with library exhibitions, and much can be learned from professional museums how to include interactive elements in the show. So again, let me stress this. If you conceive of exhibitions as kind of a reach out operation, the sense is, and the idea is, to get people in the library and to make them interested in the library, which are not people who are not before customers of the library. Most importantly, libraries have developed recently new formats for events and programs which create the dialogue with its public and beyond. To the left, you see a story cafe at Uster Library in Switzerland. Individuals tell their stories to one another. The participants of a story cafe offer themselves to the library as living books, loud voices not yet silenced into the written form. To the right, you see a debating club in Leipzig University Library, the so-called Thomasius Club, where authors are invited to talk and answer questions. This debate format is much like a talk show in television, just more intimate, more intense, and with longer effects on those who listen, because it happens in the library and relates to the writings on the shelves. So very briefly here, in public libraries, events like that one on the left, the Story Cafe, and many other reading hours and story hours. This is much more common in public libraries. It can establish, as you can see here, also in academic libraries or national libraries, and it should. Libraries should have large areas where you can talk and where you can engage people in finding the meaning of arguments of text, and by that also interest them in the holdings of the library. I will end here and thank you for listening. Please be so kind and ask me questions or protest against what I have said. I think it is important to think the library anew from time to time, to imagine it as an empty building waiting to be filled. I take here the liberty of letting you see a photograph which I have taken in February in Seoul, symbolize the construction site I want libraries to become. The main questions we who work in libraries should ask ourselves is, what will people be interested in doing here? The modern library has been around for more than 100 years. It has been enriched by digitization, but this is not the end of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Schneider, for your insightful talk on digitization of the libraries. And I see a lot of similarities between the European perspective and also our Korean situation. Okay, now before we move on to the Q&A session, we would like to invite our dear staff, Ms. Kwon Hyo-Kyoung from Seoul National University University main library, and she is expert on the digitization of our school library. So she will provide a discussion, and she will explain our school library system. Please welcome Ms. Kwon.
Hello, I'm Kwon, in charge of digital content management at Seoul National University Library. First of all, thank you for the lecture today, Dr. Schneider. I would like to explain status of digitization at Seoul National University Library. This is the short overview of the status of our institution's system and holdings. First, Alma-D is a system of digital contents which is based in our last system, Alma. The key contents are images and MP3 and MP4 files. We have 530,000 items of it. Second, the collection is this is submission and service management solution. We have 140,000 of items of thesis and dissertations files in it. Third is a space, as known as our institutional repository. We have papers of our research and articles published by Seoul National University's member. We have 140,000 of files in it. This is the table of contents. Mainly, I would like to talk about Alma-D and the contents that we contains in Alma-D in this presentations. Our library manages digital contents using the Alma-D system. As you can see in this page, the metadata which is wrote in Dublin Core is stored in Alma, and the original files are stored in Amazon Web Services. The bibliographic information in Alma is exported to Primo for search. When the link is clicked, the AWS original file can be viewed through the Alma viewer. Secondly, the collection structure within the Alma-D system is configured as shown on the screen. All digital contents are placed under a collection and displayed as a digital title, represented as a single item. Under each digital title, there are digital representations that correspond to the bibliographic information, and each file is included in this representation. Now, I'm going to talk about digital contents holding and management status of Seoul National University. The total holdings consist of 16 fields and 533 items. In addition, the most frequently used fields in 2023 are rare books, university historical archives, and university newspapers. And I think this proves that there is a growing interest in digitalized materials. In addition to the digitization of historical records, such as rare books and university newspapers, there are also materials received from each department, such as artwork from College of Fine Arts, regular performances from the College of Music, and insect materials from the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. Additionally, MP4 formatted VOD materials that record academic events on campus are also provided. There are really lots of information for the specific information of the 16 fields, so please check the presentation for more information. Let me briefly introduce how to use digital materials from the user's perspective. If you access to Seoul National University Library homepage, click Collection under the Find tab on the library website's top menu. Of course, accessing through the Primo search box is also possible. Once you enter the digital collection, you can access AMAD contents. Each collection is planned and set up with the collection depth when first opened. As mentioned earlier, each collection has a digital title below the collection structure. Bibliographic information written in Dublin Core format is displayed. If the material is an image, it is displayed in an image viewer. And if it is an audio or video file, such as MP3 or MP4, it is connected to a VOD viewer like the one shown on the screen. Apart from AMAD, Seoul National University holds other online materials, which I will introduce below. First is DCollection. And DCollection is a service management page for submitting and managing the thesis and dissertations. It primarily contains thesis and dissertation contents. There are 140,000 online resources available, and they are also published through Primo after being imported into Alma. And second is S-Space. S-Space is a Seoul National University institutional repository. It primarily contains papers, conference presentations, meeting materials, research data and reports, and internal publications. There are 140,000 online resources available, and the solution is collecting and servicing open access full texts produced by Seoul National University. Lastly, I want to introduce Like SNU, a platform that represents the future vision of our library. Like SNU is a big data-based knowledge information platform made by our library. It provides customized reading roadmaps and academic field-related maps to enable SNU members to use resources tailored to their needs, like a true SNU student, like SNU. The service is currently running, and we plan to enhance it by using thesis and academic paper data for a book paper and lecture-based recommendation system. We provide personalized roadmaps based on the information we have, such as the top 500 popular books by 10 subjects, user-related book maps, and the key subjects areas to focus on. We believe that Like SNU embodies the goals and vision that libraries need to achieve beyond simply providing resources. It is an active attempt to reach out to users and continuously study about the materials what we have. We aim to discover the value of digital resources beyond the traditional meaning of printed materials. This is the future plan of our library, and it will be the growth of the library. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hyo-Kyoung, our dear staff, for this wonderful discussion. And within a short time, you provided us with a wonderful introduction of our whole digitization system. Thank you so much. And Dr. Schneider, do you want to respond to Ms. Kwon's discussion?
Yes, thank you very much. This was very interesting. And I just have for now one question. You said in the end, when you were talking about the recommendation system, that you were reaching out. So you representing the technology in the library, you want to be useful with your services to the users. Do you actually what do you say? Is your users, is it primarily students or is it researchers or is it both? And in what ways are you communicating with them? I'm thinking about that. I found it very interesting what you said, and I think it's a clear picture of a modern, technologically advanced library, which is able to do many things. But my question is, and it's really a question, I'm curious, do you do this decision-making of what books you digitize, what you include, etc.? Do you do this as a library with the knowledge of the library? Or do you have you established new ways of communicating with users, students, and researchers? Are there commissions, for example? I'm just curious.
Thank you for the question first. Actually, like SNU is for all members of Seoul National Universities, and it was so limited environment to show about like SNU in this short time. But if anybody in Seoul National University member log in to like SNU, it provides the information which is customized to that member. So this time we just doing the service in the loan records of the books. But moreover, we are going to make the system available to recommend the thesis or the academic papers, moreover. Yeah, this is the service for both, all over the members. Can I hear the questions? Second one, please. I just forgot it.
Now let me ask in a different way. You said Primo is the place where everybody goes and searches. Will that be the future? Do you think that in the future it will be one gate, one catalog as the first query? And will you then divide and they go into different databases? Or do you think libraries can also establish, like I showed in my talk, databases for certain materials or for certain interests?
Oh, I think that question is really hard to answer. Yeah, but not as the representative of SNUL, but it's just an individual as a librarian. I think the one way is a more comfortable way to everybody to search about the data and the research papers. But if it's possible, but I think it's really hard to make that one way. It's really ideal, but I think in other way, if you think in other way, it could be really dangerous in other way, I think, because everything in one way is comparable, but it has a dangerous point that anybody who can touch the logic of the search, or this could be the like contamination of the true knowledge searching logic of individuals. So I hope if it's possible, there could be a pure one search way. That could be the best ideal thing. And if it's not possible, I think the lots of creating lots of search places and the individual choose the best search engines I think that could be the pathway to go to the ideal search engines.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe I could ask some questions, maybe to Dr. Schneider first. And do you, I mean, our libraries, SNU library, provide the thesis and master's thesis and doctoral thesis. Those are, I think, available to the outside members as well, right? Ms. Kwon? Yes. So do you also provide that kind of service at your German university libraries?
Oh, yes. I think what Ms. Kwon said is fairly, you can generalize it over the scene of university libraries, of academic libraries. It is developing, but libraries are now becoming the place to publish things, theses and other papers, as she said, in different degrees. So it also, it's always a huge problem of the server, etc. But usually also in Germany, academic libraries have repositories for their, let's say, own open access publications. And these repositories are then sometimes linked together. So you can search via one university and find a paper at another university. That's a genuine part of the digitization movement in the publication industry. And that's very helpful. I mean, it's now quicker than ever before that you get new results in your discipline. You get to know this, what was written, what was published. When I open any catalog, like I'm now in Vienna and I open the Vienna University catalog, I get very quickly the same things I would get also at the Leipzig catalog or whatever, because of the open access nature of things. So open access is provided by publishers, and it's provided also by universities and also by libraries. What you see, what you've seen here in my talk, the Ebers Papyrus and the Codex Sinaiticus, these are manuscript publications or republications in the internet. And I would be interested to know, also from the National Library in Korea, what is the idea to turn special collections into digital repositories. My example with the coins, but you could also have examples from the manuscript area. Once you put old holdings of a library in the digital format and make it searchable from outside via metadata and from inside, etc., this increases the possibility for research. It makes things available beyond the place you are and invites people from all over the world to work with these materials. So in case, if you want people to work with your material, then digitization is a wonderful way. If you want to have the research done also in different parts, then be useful for your own house, you have to invite those people back and have them discuss at your place. So I think digitization of the library material is a big opportunity to boost research. But I think research has also the necessity of direct communications between scholars, etc. And libraries could organize these direct communications like universities do those organizations all the time. So I would be curious if on another level, the National Library with special collections, what they envisage as a digitization strategy, or where they see problems, possibly also that. I don't know if any one of the colleagues want to say something about this.
First of all, I want to thank to Professor Schneider to attend and to listen to your lecture, and thanks to Professor Song to our colleagues to listen this beautiful lecture and beautiful programs.
Because I'm also director of the International Kyujangak International Center for Korean Studies, I could make one small comment that we have so many old documents that those many of the items belong to the UNESCO World Culture Memory Heritage, and there are many customers of our archives, and these customers, they want to have digitized forms for these old documents. So we are constantly working on this task. You know, making the old documents freely available on the internet. In this way, they don't have to come to our archive personally. So that's our ongoing process, and sometimes it's very difficult because these documents, they are national holdings or national assets. So many people demand that we produce free copies for them. Sometimes it's very difficult to take this service, to make this service available, because it's a lot of work. You know, making paper copies for them, that's a lot of work, and we cannot charge, you know, charge for them for this kind of service, because those holdings are nationally owned, national goods. Okay. So that's one of our difficulties. Yeah, that's why we want to digitize the archival materials as much as we can.
Yeah. We in Leipzig have made our research reading room, the reading room for manuscripts and special collections. We made it smaller because fewer people come, because we digitize many things which are much in demand, and so people can use them. But when we gained place or space by making the reading room smaller, we created a seminar room. And the seminar room is now there with a huge screen. And now the students from the university with their teachers, classes, can come over in the library and use that seminar room to work with older material in the digital format, to get an explanation, not only to see. Because, I mean, if you have older material digitized, the researchers know what to do with it. But the students do not know what to do with it, that they cannot read it in a sense, that they're not accustomed to see those materials from former centuries or specialized materials. So it's very good to have a teacher there. And if you have this kind of classroom approach in the library itself, there is always the possibility to get the original and to show the original under certain circumstances in the building itself. So I like this very much. I've seen it the first time in Philadelphia at the Pennsylvania University 10 years ago. And then I asked my staff at Leipzig University Library how many people would use the reading room for manuscripts. And they said, well, fewer and fewer. There are not many people coming here because we digitize what they want to have.
Yes.
And then together we found this idea to create a seminar room instead of the specialized reading room. And the idea is to do not feed only the digital image to the people and say, here, get it and get away with it, but also to establish and the culture of knowledge around these materials, to keep that up in discussion, like in a seminar, like in a specialized talk, and to do that in the library or in the archive, like in the museum, etc. So these, I'm very much a fan for inviting people into the building. I know that not many buildings are equipped for that. Public libraries can do it more easily. I was very happy in the Leipzig case that we got a room free of books, and then we could build a conference room, but that's not everywhere possible. But to think this way, I think, is important. So libraries do not give their holdings away by digitizing it, but they enter a kind of an academic, a scientific, and also a discussion in society.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your additional explanations. Okay, then I think that this was a very successful invited talk by Dr. Schneider, and also we also thank you, Ms. Kwon for joining our event as a discussant from our SNU side, and we also thank the acting director, Mr. Kim Hwan, for joining us, and we are honored to have you. Yes, because you are the representative of the National Library. Okay. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, the speakers and the participants. Okay, thank you so much. So,
감사합니다.
yes, thank you. Vielen herzlichen Dank. Dankeschön.
Danke Ihnen. Danke Ihnen.
Okay. 고맙습니다. Yeah. So now we close the event. Thank you. 고맙습니다.